You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome to Paraversal Universe, where all paranormal perspectives apply. Join paranormal historian and ufologist Kevin Malek and psychic demonologist Jennifer Kevin Malek as they navigate us through the different categories of the unknown and the unexplained, including ghosts and haunted places, cryptids and monsters, aliens and UFOs, theology and mythology, metaphysics, forbidden archaeology, urban legends and folklore, conspiracies, crimes, and corruption, with top analysis from the experts of these disciplines. If it's amazing, unusual, or mysterious, if it's bizarre, creepy, and fantastic, if it's unbelievable, paranormal, or supernatural, it's here on Paraversal Universe. Here are your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. Whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, welcome to Paraversal Universe, brought to you by the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited at the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center here in Rylander, Wisconsin. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek.
Hello, everybody.
Paraversal Universe is produced by Kat Hobson, the voice of Fate Magazine Radio, over at WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We are also heard on WCET 101.7 FM out of Columbia, South Carolina, High Point Radio 100.5 FM, and 1620 AM out of New Jersey, and the Rift Radio Network family out of Lakeside, Virginia. Hello, one and all. And hello to everybody in the chat room. We look forward to your questions and comments as always. The archive for the show will be available as well. Show archives from over the years can be found in various places on the web, including our archives like page on Facebook called Paraversal Universe Show Archives. Also check out our guest promo page, Paraversal Universe Radio, for what's upcoming in the near future. We hope everyone is doing well today.
And yay, it's Friday.
Yep, it's Friday, and it was beautiful out. We're going to talk about Nikola Tesla today with the host of This Uncanny Earth, Robert Solomon. But first, before we bring him out, as always, let's do our shout-outs. Shout-outs go to those people who share our show banners this last week. We always appreciate it greatly and thank you kindly. So who do we have?
This week we have Walt Christos, Thoughts of Christos, Katrina Cooper, Rhodey Speak, Dennis Koch, Jason Bland, Paranormal Soup, Jamie Demlos, JJ Paranormal, Metaphysical Bounce, Howie O'Dell from the Orion Effect, Kat Hobson at WBHM, Lawrence DeMisa, Jean Broida, Lisa Reynaga, The Rift, Sudan, Lori Kreslaw, Jackie Joe, Elaine Dawes, Saint Magazine Radio, Trish Freudel, Jess Terrell, and Max Hawthorne.
Alrighty. Jennifer and myself had the pleasure earlier this year to be guests on the show This Uncanny Earth, hosted by Robert Solomon and Craig Huston. Everyone, go check them out on social media. Anyhow, the subject of Tesla came up as we were chatting after the show. They have researched Nikola Tesla, and of course, Jen and I have an appreciation for the legendary inventor. In 5 years, we have never done a show on Tesla. Also, we have never had Robert or Craig on before. So we asked them if they'd like to come on and do a show with us, and they said yes. Now, Robert is with us today. Unfortunately, Craig couldn't make it as something important had come up. So we wish him well. But let's bring Robert out and get this Tesla appreciation party started, shall we?
Yes.
Robert, are you with us?
I am with you, and thank you for having me on this wonderful show. And hello to the radio listeners out there in Radio Land. It is a pleasure to meet all of you.
Yes, welcome to Paraversal Universe. So, as I said in the intro, we were talking about Tesla after we appeared on your show, This Uncanny Earth. Our kind of show, by the way. We love that show.
Thank you.
We enjoyed being guests on the show. It was so wonderful. Thank you both for having us on.
Thank you for coming on. We definitely appreciate it, and we hopefully in the future we'll see you again, for sure.
So, before we discuss Tesla, perhaps you can share a bit with us a little about yourself and how your interest in Tesla came about.
So, I've always been kind of fascinated with the paranormal, occult, space, science fiction. Started as a young age, but it kind of sat on the back burner as I grew up and lived a teenage life and then a young adult life where I was working. I didn't really have time to invest in that sort of realm. But I would say probably coming up on 10 years. Back in 2010, I was at, I believe it was still Borders then. They hadn't turned into Books A Million yet. And I remember running into a book called The 12th Planet by Zecharia Sitchin. So I read that and then started going deeper into different things and avenues. And I remember as I was searching online and looking, just trying to fill my mind with all this new information that I had never known about before, I stumbled upon Nikola Tesla. Now, I heard about Tesla here and there, maybe, a couple sentences in a school book when they were busy, promoting Edison as the man, so to speak. And I go, yeah, I remember learning a sentence or two about him, with AC and DC. And so I started reading. And I started reading and reading and reading and reading and reading and reading. And I've seen the older movie that has Orson Welles in it. I've seen numerous documentaries. Just all kinds of information has flooded my mind about Nikola Tesla. And I couldn't stop. And to this day, I still find new things that I didn't know about Nikola Tesla. And I love it. I look over his patents, and I'm not one that's really versed in how electrical current works. Like, I can look at his patents and be like, okay, I kind of get it. But if somebody would say, hey, can you build that for me? Yeah, good luck. I might end up shocking myself. But I thoroughly enjoyed what his life was about. He wanted to give back to people. He had some crazy, crazy, crazy ideas and concepts that he wanted to turn into inventions like death rays and ozone machines and really interesting things like that. So, yeah, Tesla for me is almost a hero in my opinion. He's definitely one of the people that I give credit to my whole career to, because he got me into that part of our world, of our uncanny earth, so to speak. But he got me into that lane of science, and I studied electricity for a little bit, but it gets a little complicated when you start looking at circuits and things like that. So my brain kind of eased back a little bit, but yeah, Tesla to me is fascinating. He's a great human being, and I wish he would have lived longer and was more accepted than he actually was towards the end of his life.
Yes, we never learned about him in school, and I know some places did. Some places he wasn't even brought up. For us, we were one of those places where I never, I don't remember ever learning about Tesla in school. Mm-hmm. And like you said, Edison, and I'm sure we'll touch on this a few times tonight, where Edison, first of all, there was a rivalry between the two.
Yes. For
sure. And the history books chose to acknowledge Edison over Tesla. Mm-hmm. So we have, this is really cool too. So we have over 1,000 books here on the unknown and unexplained. So we naturally have a book or two on Nikola Tesla. We looked and we found the perfect one, which we will use as our guide for the questions. Normally we write questions up before the show. In this case, unless it's like the Paralogian report. In this case, we figured we would let this book be our guide because it's got everything laid out. And although I'm good with science, some of the, like you said, some of the stuff is so complex.
Right.
Even by today's standards.
Right. Yeah.
His stuff is complex.
Right. Well, look at all the stuff he did. To me, it's heartbreaking because when I was in school, I learned very little to next to nothing when it came to Nikola Tesla compared to Edison. And the fact that he didn't get credit for all the stuff that he did. He did such amazing things. Like, look what he did at the World's Fair.
Right.
He was the one back in that time that came up with electricity, essentially, and lit up the World's Fair.
The Columbia Exposition, I believe it was. I could be wrong on that one. But I believe that was the big year. I think that was turn of the century because Americana was real big
right.
at that World's Fair. And I believe it was in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
My World's Fair history is a little murky. I studied it a while back, but with world fairs, they kind of went everywhere, and then they stopped, and then they tried to have them again, I believe, in other countries, but it didn't have the same flair and fire that it did, long before I was born. But like you said, Jennifer, like I said, 1 or 2 sentences. That was it. It was just competing scientist. Nothing like wireless. Because I think if in school, if they would teach us the stuff that I've been learning for the past 10 years, I would have been attentive every day. I wasn't a big fan of high school, or it was a lot of cliques and things like that. And that's not to say, everybody's gonna have a bad time. I did, and that's just me. But if they would have taught us about Tesla, I would have. I might be a scientist right now. It's a shame that a man of his caliber and his intelligence didn't receive the recognition that he rightfully deserves. And money plays a big part into that, as many people know. So it's kind of rough with Tesla for sure.
Yeah. We it wasn't not too long ago. We looked into H.H. Holmes, who was also another we'll say character associated with the Chicago World Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had his murder castle in Chicago at the time, and he was using the fair as kind of he was
cover.
He was using it to his advantage.
He would look for victims that would come from all over the country to work the fair. Now,
with him, was he Jack the Ripper? Because I had heard that he was the Ripper, like they had found some form of evidence. And I don't mean to take away from your show, but
no, we discuss all mysteries here, and I figure today we'll probably we'll if we get off the subject a little bit, that's fine.
Okay.
As long as we're talking about anomalous stuff,
Right.
We're not talking about cooking or recipes or
shopping for washers and dryers at Home Depot.
Well, actually, there's one show out there that they do recipes and paranormal mix, and it's not a bad show.
All
So.
right,
But anyways, that's not us.
Going back to
Holmes, which will lead us back to Edison or Tesla. No, I was just so that's where I learned a lot of stuff about the Chicago Fair from that. And today we take for granted the way the city is lit up at night.
Right.
But back then, I mean, that must have been just so amazing.
Right. But yes, to answer your question on Holmes and Jack the Ripper, there are quite enough things to coincide with him being Jack the Ripper. There's a book, if you're interested, by one of his family members, Jeff Mudgett, called Bloodstains. If you haven't read it, I would suggest that you pick up a copy. It will answer pretty much any questions you may or may not have.
Yeah, he's probably the leading contender on the list. I would say that's. But so the book we have here that we decided to use is called "The Fantastic Inventions of Nikola Tesla," and so what we'll do is we'll use this chapter index as our compass, so to speak, to give us direction. There's also a chapter on this most mysterious projects and inventions he was working on, like you had brought up. Some of the stuff he was working on is like,
mind blowing.
Yeah.
Right.
Blowing.
Right.
So go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to share something with your audience, a funny little thing that happened to us both today. So beforehand, Kevin were talking back and forth, and so he sends me the table of contents, so to speak, and he lets me know, hey, this is, we're going to kind of go a little bit off of this, and we're going to talk about that. So I'm like, wait a minute, that's the book I'm holding in my hand. I was literally holding that same book in my hand. So I opened up to the table of contents, snapped a picture, and sent it right over to him, and I was like, I'm good. I'm ready.
We're on the same page. Literally.
Literally the same page. And I have two other books. And actually I bought it's kind of like a child's, almost a young adult Nikola Tesla book, so that when my son becomes of age, I can start teaching him this early so that he can learn all the stuff that I didn't get to learn when I was growing up. And that's no fault of my parents or anything like that. It's just the education system, the way the education system was. But, I got some books waiting for him in the wings. And I just want to say 1,000 books on, I would love to literally drive over there and look at your library, because I'm sitting roughly, if I had to guess, probably 100 to 150 kind of paranormal, esoteric books of that nature, and then probably another 100, 150 just on fiction. I like to read, period. But I'm fascinated with the fact that you have 1,000 books on the unknown and things like that. Ah, man, just to be able to sit in your library for a day, it still wouldn't be enough. I need at least a week to a month to be able to digest everything. But that's cool. Like I nothing I love more than people who have these kind of books, because I know very few folks that have books of this caliber. Like my co-host Craig, he actually has similar types of books that I do. I have another buddy that has similar books, and a young lady that I know, she has similar books. So it's really cool when you meet people that have the same kind of taste for the unknown that you do, so that you don't always feel like, man, I think I'm the only person that I know, not, obviously not in the world, because mathematically that wouldn't make any sense. But sometimes I feel like I'm the only person I know. And then you're like, do you know? And they're like, oh, you know about the Gnostics? Oh, so do I know about the Gnostics. Oh, okay, let's talk about that. And then next thing you know, you got a great friendship going. So, and that's what I think we have here, because we all have this similar interest. And the fact that you brought me on to talk about Tesla, I mean, that just solidifies how awesome you folks are. So I appreciate it. Appreciate everything you guys have done.
Well, things happen for a reason. I think what we would call a coincidence is probably as rare as a paranormal event.
There are no coincidences.
In fact, in the Hebrew language, there's no word for coincidence. I think we were talking about that before on your show when we came on.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But for sure, I mean, like you said, the fact that I, of all the books and, that we have here, that this ended up being the book that we decided this would be the best one. And I thought, I'm just going to take a snapshot of the table of contents and send them your way, so you had some kind of idea of where we were going to go. And when you sent that picture back within 15 seconds,
it had to be.
Oh boy, this is awesome. We're on the same page. I love it. He's got the book. We could, this is awesome, because we all three of us here have got this information here, and we can go through it and talk about it a little bit. I know.
Okay.
Let's see.
15 seconds.
Okay, so why don't we?
All right. It's time for our first commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We'll be right back with our guest after these commercials.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son, what are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome!
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy, I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back from our first commercial break, everyone. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM, High Point Radio, and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek, and we'd like to take a minute and thank everyone who makes Paraversal Universe possible, including graphic art director Lawrence D. Miza, music theme by Matt Stens, announcer Frank Lee, producer and owner at WBHM, Kat Hobson, also to Howie Odell and Lisa Radaga and the Rift family, and to Michael Vera at WCET-FM. Thank you all for carrying our content and working together on our behalf and the behalf of our audience everywhere. And of course, as always, a huge thank you to God in heaven, whose strength beyond strength is stronger than all, for granting us this wonderful show and opportunity here to be with you all.
Amen.
Amen.
And appreciation to all those various platforms we are on, including iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Twitch, YouTube, Daily Motion, TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Blog Talk, Podbean, Google Play, Mixcloud, and Paranormal Livestream app, which is streamed and restreamed from various other outlets all over the world via the internet. This segment, let's see. Okay. So this segment of Paraversal Universe is brought to you by the UFO Wisconsin Research Team, Wisconsin's alternative to MUFON. Okay, back to the show. We are talking about Nikola Tesla with Fortean researcher Robert Solomon with This Uncanny Earth.
Hello.
Hello. Righty. So let's see. Yeah, usually we have we're really diligent about writing questions out. and it's this is going to be fun. This is going to be.
Yes.
We've done this a couple times like this. It works out pretty well. So, looking at the table of contents, I suppose. Well, actually, the first thing we should do, even before that, is before we get to the nitty gritty. If you can tell us the basics about Tesla, at least I guess like who he was, what time period, all that kind of, just the basics.
Yeah, no problem. Nikola Tesla was born in 1856, and I'm probably going to botch this because I have a little bit of trouble with Eastern European dialects. Simuljan in the Austrian Empire, which is located in Croatia. He was one of 5 children. His mother, probably going to botch this one too, Juka Mandik, was also an inventor, much like Nikola, and many believe that's where he actually got his talents and his notion for inventing, because she invented little small household appliances that would help with things like the wash or dishes or things like that. Now his father, on the other end of the spectrum, Milutin Tesla, was a Serbian Orthodox priest and a writer, and it is said that he could actually make it seem like he was having debates with other people in his study, which Nikola was not allowed to go in. At a young age, Nikola would try to sneak in and read his father's books, read in his study, and his father would catch him and punish him. And Nikola would still sneak back in because he had that thirst for knowledge, and he would still read them. And as he grew older, actually, his father wanted him to join the clergy. He was, being a priest. He wanted his son to follow in his footsteps. Now, being 5 children, the rest of the children did different things. Dane, I believe that was his brother, and he dies fairly early in life. I believe he's roughly 5 or 6 when he passes, and Tesla sees that. He's thrown off a horse. And so that would also shape Nikola, because at the time Dane was the favorite because he had gifts. It was noted that he was very talented, much probably like Nikola, maybe even smarter than Nikola. We'll never know because he passed away. Rest in peace to the dead. And so Nikola, starts having these different ideas and concepts, and he becomes very sick at many different times in his life. And when you read about him, you'll notice that when he becomes sick, he has epiphanies. And so he ends up getting, I want to say, cholera around 1881, 82. And he's trying to recover, and he sees the sunset, and he quotes Faust, and all of a sudden he has an epiphany, and he draws in the sand a picture of an alternating current and how it would work. And that's just one of the many, many, kind of, I want to say, quirky kind of things about Tesla. He wasn't your run-of-the-mill scientist. He wasn't like, okay, I go to the lab and I work from this time to this time, then I go home and I'm with my family. The lab was basically his brain, and it was switched on 24/7. The man barely slept. He ends up studying first at the real school, but it looks like school. I think that's probably what they were going for there, at Karlstadt. He then goes on to the Polytechnic Institute in Graz, and later the Charles Ferdinand University in Prague, studying everything from I believe he starts with mathematics and forms of science, and then he moves on to electrical engineering and philosophy and all things like that. But he actually doesn't stay in university very long. He gets into a sort of a rift with one of his professors over a dynamo, I believe, a design for one. And he says, well, you should do it like this. And so the professor's like, nah, it won't work. That's not going to work. It'll never work. So I think that kind of pushed Tesla back a little bit, and Tesla worked and worked and worked, and he finally made it make sense. But by then he had lost his scholarship, kind of dropped out of school, and kind of went about his own business, roughly until he starts working for the let me see, I got it right here, the Budapest Telephone Exchange. And that was through an agent of Thomas Edison named Tavadar Puskas in Hungary in 1881, where he actually worked as a draftsman at first until the office is fully operational, in which he became the chief electrician, pardon me. And during his time with the company, he makes vast improvements to the equipment and develops an amplifier device. So we can already see that Tesla's making headway, and he's already working for Edison long before he meets Edison, which won't happen until 1884. And that'll open up a whole nother can of worms, because at this point he only knows of the Edison company, because he knows him, he knows the company through the two agents, first being Tavadar and then Ferenc, who works with Tesla in 1882 when Tesla moves to Paris. And funny thing about Tesla, he actually installed the lighting systems in the Paris Opera House during the time that he was in Paris, which is, it's Tesla.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's Tesla. He does all these things. The stuff he does, you're just like, man. But what we have to understand about Tesla before folks start, running headfirst into his research, and you need to understand the type of man he was. He wasn't like the rest of us. He was never married. He never had kids. He had a sort of one-track mind for things. And sometimes he would go all in on something and then quit. He smoked cigarettes for a while, then just quit. He gambled. He was known for gambling for a while and then quit. He drank coffee, then quit. He would do these things and then all of a sudden abruptly stop, and he would never do them again. He had weird aversions. I believe women's earrings, women's pearls, I believe too, would just, he couldn't stand the sight of them. It would, there was something in him that made him revolt whenever he saw women's earrings. He couldn't do it. And and that's the kind of thing we have to understand about Tesla, because where the genius was of Tesla, where the amazing phenomenal intellect that man had for electricity and how it worked and how it moved through things, was offset by his social skills. He wasn't a very sociable man, so to speak. He later in life, he basically locks himself in the Waldorf Astoria for long periods of time. And I think if Tesla would have been, I don't know, maybe not so socially awkward, I think we might have been looking at a different Nikola Tesla. But I think the world, because he goes through a lot of trials and tribulations with people. Edison, first of all, because Edison only works with this man for a few months before there's a rift and they don't like each other. And if you read about the reason why, Edison's a jerk. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He's a jerk. He took AC and DC and used AC and killed an elephant and I believe a dog to show them how the dangerous aspect of alternating current. Meanwhile, Tesla is literally sitting in his laboratory with electricity going on all around him, and he can take it because he knows exactly how alternating current works. And direct current was far more dangerous than alternating current. But how do you beat your rival? Make him look like the bad guy. When Edison, in fact, almost as bad as J.P. Morgan Chase, who more or less breaks Tesla. There's a lot of things that go on with the Wardenclyffe Tower and that man that are bad. But he basically breaks Tesla, long after him and Edison had that split, or that rift. And the funny thing about Edison, so Tesla does all this work for Edison. And you'll come to find out with Tesla, people don't want to pay this man very much. He ends up making some good money down the line. But Edison's like, hey, if you can do this for me, I'll give you $50,000. Which at that time is a lot of money. It's still a lot of money today, but back then it was even more. And so Tesla does this. He does it for Edison. Edison's like, I'm not going to pay you. You should get the American humor there. Now, I don't know about you two, but if somebody doesn't pay me my $50,000 after I've worked with them, we're going to have a serious problem. It's not going to be something I'm going to be like, I'll just walk away.
Right.
We're going to have a problem. But Tesla was a pacifist. Tesla didn't like to fight people. He didn't like to beat people up, and that's why you don't really, Tesla just didn't have it in him to be ruthless and cutthroat. And Edison did. J.P. Morgan Chase did. and that's why, and that's, you'll see, that's why Tesla, his name wasn't as highly favored at the time, or in a lot of our education systems books, because the victor writes the history books. Unfortunately, it's a sad fact, but people like us that know Tesla and know what he's about, we continue to carry on his legacy. And there's people that are actually similar in intelligence to Tesla that are working on his inventions. I'm not one of those people. I'll carry on his name through facts and things that I know, but when it comes to designing dynamos and AC motors and things like that, go ahead and leave me out of it. I don't want to get shocked.
Right. That was awesome. Thank you for that.
Sorry if it went on too long. I can
No.
talk about Tesla for
We got
4 or
2
5
hours.
hours.
We have 2 hours. You're good.
Yeah. No, and for the people listening, for those that tune in and want to listen to, about Tesla, many of them are not going to know just some of the like what you said. Like I had read this book years ago, but it was years ago. Okay. And I don't know if it's mentioned in this one, but yeah, about doing the lighting for the Paris Opera House.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't aware of that. I just, so it's cool to hear stuff, different things about them. And I was writing notes down while you were talking. The first thing I wrote down was that we should mention the author of the book.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
So the book's by Nikola Tesla, the fantastic inventions of Nikola Tesla, but it also has additional material by none other than David Hatcher Childress of Ancient Aliens fame. If anybody ever watches that show on the History Channel, same guy. Even I was like, wait a minute, is that the same? Little Google machine action, same person. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, and he did this way before Ancient Aliens came out.
Yeah. Oh, real quick, 2 other books that I used for tonight's discussion that I want to put out there for everybody if they want to check it out. One is the Penguin Classics, Nikola Tesla, My Inventions and Other Writings. That's the other book. And Tesla, The Life and Times of an Electric Messiah by Nigel Cawthorne. Now, this book, The Life and Times, it takes a lot of material from My Inventions and Other Writings. So you'll see a lot of parallels, but then you'll have some other interesting facts. Like it gives, I think, a brief paragraph about Westinghouse. It gives a brief paragraph about Edison and J.P. Morgan Chase. So you know who those people, who those players are. Excuse me, in this grand stage of AC versus DC battle. So those 3 books, check them out. Like I said, I have a 4th for my son when he gets older, but I don't have that one next to me. So if anybody wants it, feel free to contact me, however, and I'll get it out to you if you want your kids to be able to learn about it too. No problem.
Sweet. The second thing, or another thing I was jotting down was Chase. For those who don't know who Chase is, Chase Manhattan Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, okay, he's on to give people an idea how rich this guy was. There was, I believe, it was a $50,000 bill, and he was on it.
Yeah. Yep.
Crazy, right? But anyways, and certainly secret society, totally Illuminati, and that in itself plays into this too. I think behind the scenes, and I don't know how many people touch on that. And I do think that because you have a situation where Tesla wanted to give people free energy, and of course the robber barons don't want to give anything for free.
Nope.
And they want to charge everybody for everything. And I think just even that difference in morality is where you got the split. And of course, Edison was on what I do call the nefarious side of things, opposed to Tesla, who, if we were to incorporate all of his inventions today, and we could, but we don't. We're still paying for energy, and I think every house should have free energy. I do.
It's funny you bring that up, because when he pitched the idea to Chase, and he said, because the first thing he led with is what I would have led with too. I can produce wireless electricity, and we can run it in homes. Now, Morgan, being the kind of greedy kind of person that he is, playing his part in society, says, well, we can put a regulator on it, and we can charge, much like you have on most of your homes out there, the thing that the meter that people come out and read. And Tesla said, no, that's not what I want to do. Tesla was using the power that is already on the earth. Like everything Tesla did was based off of the way the earth works, because Tesla knew how different fields and magnetics and things like that worked. So what he wanted to do was use some of these magnetic fields and electrical fields and things like that and produce the free energy clean. Like it wouldn't cause cancers, it wouldn't cause any diseases and things of that nature. It was just free. You could just pick it up. And I've thought about this, and I'm like, man, how cool would it be to live in a Nikola Tesla world where there's no cords? I mean, there's no cords, because we all have or have had that one outlet that has 15 extension cords plugged into it, multiple extension cords after that.
How many house fires have happened because of stuff like that? And how many people have died as a result?
Especially the old houses, because the old house wiring was cloth.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, my father has old Christmas lights. He's real big into Christmas. And the wires were actually covered in cloth. They weren't covered in plastic like the wires we see now. It's actually cloth covering. It's really crazy. And a lot of houses burnt down because of that cloth, and bulbs getting really hot and then catching the tree on fire, and next thing you know, your house is burnt down. And Tesla would have done away with all that. There wouldn't have been the heat coming off. It would have been wireless. I mean, we don't live in that world, but man, it's a beautiful thought to have, I think.
Okay, everybody, and with that, it is time for our next commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back from our second break. This is Paraversal Universe on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, also heard on WCET-FM, High Point Radio, and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek. Before we get back to the show, we want to tell you all that we are on Twitter as the NWPS, and we are on MeWe as Paraversal Universe. Our like and group pages on Facebook are under various headings as well. Having said that, check out our Society's like page, the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited, and Jennifer's like page, Jennifer Malek, Psychic Demonologist. Leave a like if you like what you see, and we always appreciate it. And there are a couple Facebook group pages we want you to check out. The Ultimate Conspiracies group page is one. The Lake Monstrosities group page is another. Feel free to join them both. We'd love to see you there. Each network mentioned has a group and like page on Facebook as well. So check those out for upcoming content. This segment is brought to you by the book Unknown Objects, Top 10 U.S. UFO Cases by Gene Breda, who is one of the correspondents on the Paralogian Report here on Paraversal Universe. And any comments for this week's show can be addressed in the chat room. Let's get back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we were talking with Robert Solomon from This Uncanny Earth about Nikola Tesla.
Mm-hmm. Hey. Yeah, we're back. Like I said, like we were talking in the break, I could talk about Tesla for the next 5 hours.
So could we. So during the commercial break, we got a question for you from the chat room. There are so many stories about Tesla, and so many are astonishing and true. What are some misconceptions and stories about him that are not true?
That's a really good question. One of my least favorite things that I hear people that aren't fans of Tesla, and I don't know how many of those people, I see like comments crop up every now and again in different social media sites, but the detractors of Tesla always love to say this thing about him and pigeons. Like it's almost to the point you think that he was married to a pigeon. And I think that Tesla, being who he was, I think once he got old in life, he started to realize, man, humanity kind of stinks. Nobody wants this free energy. I'm really trying to get this out here. And by that point, and you'll see with one of his last patents, he kind of gives up. He becomes kind of a hermit. He doesn't want to be bothered. So I think, like a lot of people do with their dogs or cats, he takes solace in animal companionship. And, animals don't judge you. They don't treat you bad. They don't, they're not going to cheat on you. They're not going to rob you blind. They're not going to talk bad about you behind your back. They don't exhibit the same human traits we do. And for people to say, yeah, he loved his pigeons, and I've read a few profane things that I won't mention, and those people are quite unintelligent. But I think one of the biggest misconceptions is him in these pigeons. I think just he saw a spirit and said, you know what, these pigeons are cool. We hang out. I don't have to really do too much like a dog or a cat. You have to kind of keep tabs on them a little bit. And he just thought, I can feed them. I can do this. I can do that, and they're good to me. They come for food. I can talk with them. I can hang out with them. But I don't think he had this huge romantic interest in a pigeon. Honestly, I don't think Tesla was the type of person that had romantic interests. And that's not to say he didn't like women or anything like that. I just don't think he dug the whole courting process, the dating and that. I think he had a different mindset than what most people think. So, that's another one. I think people might have thought that Tesla just, because he was borderline socially inept, that he didn't like women. I think more that he had a one-track mind when it came to things. I think he said, you know what, science. Okay, so if I have this, because, it's like us. If we have a problem in our life, we go over it and we fine tooth comb. We look through it. We're like, okay, the water's leaking from this part from a pipe. What's causing that? So we investigate, and it takes up space in our brain. Imagine that, but every minute of every day, and that's all you do. You just look to solve problems with machines, electricity. You're thinking of ways to better mankind, but it's consistent. You sleep 3 hours a night. Tesla didn't sleep much. I mean, with the man with that form of genius, why would you sleep? He kept himself healthy. He ate little. He ate like a bird. You know, he picked at his food. He didn't eat a whole bunch. And he spent most of his time making blueprints, drawing out designs. So one of the biggest misconceptions of there's a whole thing with the pigeon and the whole thing that he didn't like women. Because I see that a lot too, that he didn't like women. No, I don't believe that at all. He might have found a couple girls cute walking by. Oh, she's attractive, but I'm back at it. You know, like it was a distraction for a second, but I'm back at it. And Tesla's brain didn't work like ours, where we're like, we can focus on different things in our life. You know, I can read one book right now, pause in half of it, and then go read another book and still be able to pick off from that first book. And I actually have multiple books that I've done this with, and we won't get into that. That'll be a whole nother discussion. Mm-hmm. But I think Tesla he had a one-track mind. And if you read his autobiography and his books, you'll understand that, okay, Tesla isn't like humanity. And that is another area where he ultimately failed. Not failed like he was a loser, but failed to fully grasp humanity. I think if he could have grasped humanity, he could have found a way around a lot of the negativity that we all have and some of the negative aspects of humanity, and really pushed forward to kind of navigate that. But I think, you know, you get a bad taste in your mouth from human beings once you get ripped off for $50,000, which back then would have made him a millionaire. Then, you know, you get basically spit on by JP Morgan Chase, who's a greedy dude. You're like, oh man, nice to meet you. You can help fund what I'm trying to create. Oh, thank you so much. Wait, you want me to charge people for this, for something I can create and give to the population for free? They'll never ever have to worry about this again. I can stop all wars, which is part of his death ray conversation that we'll probably have here in a little bit. I can stop all these wars. I can benefit mankind 1,000-fold. And you don't want me to do that? You would rather save money and be this penny pinching, just greedy person. I can save the world, but you don't want me to do that. And I think that when Tesla finally figured that out about humanity, he just said, you know what? You can have it. You can have this whole earth. I know what's really going on. It's yours. I don't want nothing to do with you people. Leave me alone. I got my brain, which was his best friend. Let's not sugarcoat that. His best friend was his own brain. And so, boom, here we are. We have Tesla who, you know, he wasn't a big time people person. So he took solace in animal companionship, which many people do. You know, you hear a lot of people say, oh, that's my dog, and they have pictures of him all over Instagram or Facebook, and that's their best friend. And some people say, well, that's not a human being. No, it's not. And a lot of people prefer it that way, because why have to deal with people who are going to do the things I mentioned previous when you have a friend that won't treat you like that? You know, and you know, that's a whole nother discussion. But to like I said, to answer that person's question, that's one of the biggest misconceptions, was that he was just this big old weird pigeon loving dude. And no, it wasn't like that. Not at all.
No, he was very dedicated and devoted to his work. Very much so.
You know, and he was religious, even though he didn't follow in his father's footsteps. Certainly, if your old man is a priest, you're going to, you know, be exposed to theology. And, you know, yeah, I'm sure that he saw. I don't think he blamed humanity. I think he knew that there was wicked people in high places pulling strings, and he was, because of that, it was bogging him down in a sense. Because can you imagine if he were if they would have embraced everything he wanted to do and said, you know what, we have the money to fund this, you have these amazing inventions that will change the course of history and benefit everybody, let's do it. But greed has different motivations.
And honestly, some of the stuff he was working on, I'm kind of glad it never got to see the light of the day. Only because of the people who might have gotten a hold of it. Because, I'm
well, didn't they steal a bunch of his stuff?
Yeah, the U.S. government went in after he died and took who knows what. They gave some of it back to the museum that's located in the town that he was born in.
Right.
They gave some of they say we gave it all back, but I mean,
No, they didn't.
I don't believe the U.S. government or any other government in that regard. You know what I mean?
Right. They definitely took quite a bit of it that's being kept from us. So,
and the thing is, Tesla was going to die at some point. You know what I mean? Even if he would have came up with all these inventions and maybe prolonged his life, at some point the man would have to pass. So who takes the mantle after he passes? And how do we not know their intentions? And excuse me, I'm reminded of a quote by one of my favorite comic book characters, the Shadow. He says, "What evil lurks in the hearts of men, the Shadow knows." And so you're just, it makes perfect sense because nobody knows. I mean, you can, say the mantle's given to me and I'm doing press conferences, but deep down I have my own agenda, what I want to use this for. That country over there has something I want. Well, I have a beam that can destroy half of everything they own. Well, if you folks don't pay me my money and wire it to this bank account and you tell anybody, I'll destroy your entire city. In that regard, I'm glad that some of the things that Tesla thought did not come to fruition, not because Tesla wasn't a good-hearted person, but because mankind isn't always a good-hearted person.
Right. And that's why there are secret societies.
Yes.
Yeah. And, do you think, you had brought up before, well, certainly he's got a one-track mind.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly geniuses are eccentric.
Yes.
We got 2 minutes until commercial break. Do you think he whether either knowingly or not knowingly was in contact with outside intelligence or entities, be it interdimensional, angels, anything, whatever, demons?
Okay, so that's a good question, actually. So Tesla had, and nobody else I know has had this through history, maybe the exception of one or two other people. Tesla could tap into what is known as the great conscience. We all have the ability to tap into it, but we can't. We don't know how, and nobody has really tried. But Tesla could tap into the great conscience. He was able to understand things and pull things from his mind. It was kind of like a hive-minded concept where he could pull things like a universal library. He could just pull things out of it and understand it. And, obviously I don't have 1000% proof on that. It's just a theory. And he talks about this. He talks about having a sort of universal link. And I think it has to do with the number 3. He was fascinated with that number. The number 3 was real big with him. And whether he was in contact with demons or angels or I don't know, maybe he had a link to a guardian angel that said, you know what, or a guardian messenger that said, you know what, here's some things that will help. We all have epiphanies, and we all like, hey, like a eureka moment. Oh, that's how I'll do this. I think that is given to us by, these messengers. Life's getting rough. So I think it's time for a commercial break. Sorry, I kind of took that a little bit far.
No, it's okay. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guests for the next segment.
An end run around Congress. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. That's how some Democrats describe what the president is doing on arms sales to other countries. Fox's John Decker is live at the White House.
President Trump has invoked a rarely used provision of American arms control laws to sidestep Congress and authorize billions of dollars in weapons sales to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The move, in which the president invoked his emergency authority, is aimed at sending a message to Iran and comes the same day the president announced he's sending 1,500 more troops to the Middle East. Democratic lawmakers opposed to the nearly $8 billion in arms sales denounced the decision as another effort by the White House to undermine congressional power. Lisa?
Thanks, John. Sentencing day for the Wisconsin man who admitted kidnapping a teenage girl and killing her parents. Fox's Jeff Manasso has this live.
Lisa still awaiting sentencing for 21-year-old Jake Patterson, who shot and killed James and Denise Kloss in their Berrien, Wisconsin home last fall in front of their 13-year-old daughter Jamie, who Patterson kidnapped and held captive for months before Jamie escaped and ran for help. Kloss, through her attorney, saying in court,
Jake Patterson will never have any power over me. I feel like I have some power over him because I get to tell the judge what I think should happen to him.
Patterson pled guilty in March. The Kloss family asking for the maximum of 2 life terms in prison without the possibility of parole. Lisa.
Thanks, Jeff. The U.S. Supreme Court says not so fast, putting orders to redraw electoral maps in Michigan and Ohio on hold. Federal judges ruled those maps were too partisan, but the High Court is weighing similar cases in Maryland and North Carolina that could affect redistricting everywhere, so the justices are tapping the brakes on the Michigan and Ohio rulings. Wall Street rallies, the Dow up 97 points at the bell. This is Fox News. A lone Republican objector delays a disaster relief bill, describing what was planned in the House today as swampy, with most lawmakers already out of town for a holiday recess.
The House blocked a Senate-passed $19 billion disaster aid package designed to help Americans hit by hurricanes, earthquakes, and wildfires. Republican Congressman Chip Roy objected during a pro forma session.
It's a bill that includes nothing to address the clear national emergency and humanitarian crisis we face at our southern border.
The House expected to take a roll call vote in a week and a half to approve the measure and align it with the Senate. Florida Democrat Donna Shalala calls today's bill failure tragic. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
A crackdown on excuses for skipping vaccinations. The governor of Maine just signing a bill that eliminates religious and philosophical exemptions for required vaccinations. The 4th state to take action recently amid rising opt-out rates and recent outbreaks of preventable diseases, including measles. A big change on a famous beach.
We got a situation. And it could get ugly on the New Jersey shore. Smoking and vaping on the beach are being banned on nearly every beach statewide for the first time this summer. Fire one up, it'll cost you $250 per violation. The situation, who's going to enforce it? The police? The lifeguards? Especially considering last summer's Wildwood incident with an underage drinker that went viral.
What's your last name? I don't need my last name. Done with you. Do you have cuffs on you?
No, man!
Get over here. Yo.
Don't touch me!
You're about to get...
The law doesn't say who gets the job of enforcement, but towns that want to avoid a situation like Wildwood can set up to 15% of the beachside as a smoking section.
Fox's Therese Crowley. Recapping Wall Street, a better day today. The Dow finishing up 95 points, but still down for the 5th week in a row. Lisa Brady. This is Fox News.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. Also heard on the Rift Radio Network out of Virginia, WCET-FM out of South Carolina, and High Point Radio out of New Jersey. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek, coming to you from northern Wisconsin, here at the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center. You can always enjoy excellent Fringe talk radio for awesome and informative radio shows about the paranormal, supernatural, esoteric, and Fortean topics on this network and affiliate platform websites. Not only our show, but many other good shows about different facets of the unknown and unexplained. Much to listen to and much to enjoy. Stream live on TuneIn, iTunes, or the Paranormal Livestream app, available from Android app and the iTunes Store. This segment is brought to you by the Supernatural Magazine, where our articles can be read. And, all right, we are back with, we're back to Paraversal Universe, and we are talking to the host of This Uncanny Earth, Robert Solomon, about Nikola Tesla and hidden mysteries.
Yeah, like I said before we jumped into break there, he could tap in to that sort of universal conscience, and whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it would make sense because he knew things that he could basically pull things out of thin air, so to speak. He even was working on a design for a thought reading machine that what it would do is you would think you would think of a picture, and somehow that picture would be reflected in your retina. The machine would scan your retina, put the picture through the machine and out like a movie projector onto a larger screen. So, I mean,
that's
who
nuts.
Who thinks of that? I mean,
wow.
Yeah. Right.
It's always been my belief. I don't know if it's always been, but certainly it's certainly my belief now that I don't think that as you go back, you're going to find us being monkeys and cavemen. I know we live in, I know we have a history as humanity, and I know that periods of history were not always able to enjoy technology.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that some technologies and certainly other things like whether we call them magic or sorcery. Well, sorcery is more demonic, but just the idea that we knew a lot long ago. I don't think that. I think humanity has had other periods in our history where we've had technologies of various kinds. I also think, in ufology, we have a saying. There's like UFOs are either where does the technology come from this? How did our government get the UFO technology? Well, it was either reverse engineered or it was handed down to us from our ancestors, being secret societies. So in other words, the bloodlines, the secret societies have always had this technology going all the way back to what we would call the Anunnaki, which means fallen ones, Sumeria, Mesopotamia, and that's going way back. And I think even further back. Yes, I think, when you talk about 300 million ton blocks that are being moved around so long ago, I know, I just read a thing, and they were suggesting that it was pulled with ropes and this, and they said that is so heavy that the ropes wouldn't even be able to, hold it. You'd have to make a super rope of some kind. You'd have to have super ropes of some kind to be able to pull that kind of weight without busting the rope.
Yep.
So that's just interesting stuff. I mean, I'm not saying it couldn't be done. I've seen the video of this one guy who's able to move blocks around, some pretty big blocks, and he does it just by balancing and just some. But I just something tells me there's more, especially when you look at Oh, I'm having another brain fart. City in South America, not Machu Picchu.
You talking about Puma?
Yeah, yes.
Pumapunku.
Yes. Pumapunku.
Pumapunku. Yeah, Pumapunku. The word, it's a little hard for me. It's like a tongue twister, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, that with the H blocks and stuff.
Yeah,
and it was cool. When you look at them H blocks, and they're really interesting, and of course someone had compared the blocks they used for some mass transport, which look similar to these blocks that they found. It's an interesting concept. No, I'm not saying that's what the blocks were used for, but anyways, yeah. So that's so anyways, I believe that this stuff has gone way back, way back. Some of it has. I think so. I don't know if.
Think about it like this: we all have DNA, right? That we pass on to our generations, and we have different. People say, "Oh yeah, diabetes runs in my family," or high blood pressure runs in our family. What's to stop knowledge? What's to stop innovation, inventions, thoughts, feelings, actions? What is that to stop? Or how does that not go into the DNA as well? See, we look at so many negative aspects. Oh yeah, I get this because my grandmother had it, or the mother carries the ball gene. Well, what if we also carry intelligence? What if we also carry the abilities that our forefathers had? And
there are memory genes,
right? And you talk about past civilizations, Kevin, but there's a place that was built not too long ago. Maybe 1900s, maybe a little bit later, I believe, by Mr. Edward Ledskalnin, the Coral Castle down in Florida.
Yes. Right. Yes.
Now, how did he do that? He these giant coral blocks, and just like you talked about with ropes in Egypt, what I think they did, and I can't prove this, but because I don't have a time traveling machine. Tesla tried to invent one, by the way. There's another invention that he tried to come up with. They put two magnets together, and the space in between the magnets acts as sort of a field of sorts that doesn't have to obey the same laws of gravity. If you take two magnets, they're going to want to pull together. So if you would figure out a way to work with magnets, you could essentially put a hold a block in that space and just move it as you see fit. Move this as you see fit. Now, whether or not that's the case, obviously I didn't live back then, and I'm sure some scientist somewhere is like, no, that's not right. That guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Because it's a hypothesis I have. And you talk about our past, right?
For sure.
You talk about our past civilizations. Let's go even further back than Mesopotamia and Sumeria. What if we weren't even here? What if we came from another planet that we destroyed? See Mars for reference, because Mars does have that giant scar. Now, whether or not that's the case, that's not something I can 100% prove. It's just a theory I have. That's all it is. Take it for that at the end of the day before people start calling me crazy. But what if we came from that planet? We destroyed it like we're doing to ours, and we sent a couple people. Boom, here we are. Next thing you know, we have civilization, because or we came into contact with folks who were already living here, and we mixed with them, we bred with them, and boom, now we have this civilization. So you have folks that weren't born here, that brought technology from a dying civilization, maybe something that just completely destroyed the atmosphere, something they did, or something of that nature, just completely wiped out the atmosphere, and we land here. We create a civilization. We take some of those secrets, some of that knowledge. Some of those folks start their own little secret societies, their own little niche groups, so they don't scare the people who are already here, because maybe the people who are here aren't as intelligent or up to speed as, say, we once were back on Mars or back on another planet, for instance. And so we bring that technology here, but we keep it under wraps, because if you think about it, if tomorrow, say the president says, okay, I'm going to reveal all this classified information about UFOs and aliens and all of that. Now, people like me, and I'm sure people like yourselves, would be like, oh yeah, finally, now I get to know, now. But I think the mass hysteria that it would cause, in both daily society and religious beliefs. Now, to kind of add something here, I believe God can create whatever he wants, and I don't limit God to creating something just on Earth. I believe he can create anything. I mean, the universe is vast, and we can't be the only people in this whole universe that God has created.
Right.
If you believe that way, I'm not trying to step on any spiritual toes here, but I'm just
believe in
giving
the
out my
math.
synopsis.
Math never lies. Math never lies. Do the math. The odds of there being zero life besides us, considering the amount of galaxies, which can hold the amount of universes, or not you. I'm sorry. Let me.
Solar
systems. Thank you. Backwards here.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, for sure. But keep going.
So
I didn't cut you off, but I was just agreeing.
No. It's all good. What if we, that's where our history comes from, and that doesn't, in my opinion, that doesn't denote the existence of God. To me, that just makes him stronger, because now we have, we have all these folks. But if we were to divulge that information, the widespread hysteria, because we were never taught these things, and they say that. So the phones that we have, if you have your phone in front of you, have a look at it real quick, or your PC, whatever. They say that the technology that we possess as civilians, the government is 20 to 50 years in advance of what we have right now. And you think of the technological leaps we have made since 1900 all the way to 2019 have just been boom, 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 boom. Internet, communication, airplanes, travel, all of it in a really short span of time, considering where we come from. And to sit here and act like this hasn't happened before, what I think it is civilizations, they get a hold of this technology and they don't know how to use it in a way that will benefit society, but rather in one that's going to be a detriment to society. People become crazed, they become narcissistic, and they become this former shell of humanity. They destroy their own civilization, then it gets rebuilt again, and then they have to take those baby steps back into technology once again, all to do the whole cycle over again. And I think Tesla knew that from pulling from the universal conscience, and saw that and said, you know what, I can break this. I can literally break that cycle. I can break the loop, and we can actually move forward. We can actually travel to other planets, because he was working on that. He was working on anti-gravity along with Marconi, and he was working on time travel. And now that part is a little rough with time travel. They say it can be done. I don't know. I've never done it. But anti-gravity and being able to see other planets. I mean, I'm a big science fiction fan. So being able to see a place like Asimov talks about in some of his works, like The Foundation or Nightfall, where a planet has 3 to 4 suns, is just, I mean, it'd be a dream come true for me. But that's just me, obviously. But I think Tesla could break that cycle, and these powers that be said, nah, because then you're just cutting our profit off, because they don't think long term. They think to save their own behinds. But if society collapses, money isn't worth anything, and you're left to trade. But these societies or these folks seem to have a way of sticking around. They seem to be able to adapt to whatever calamity happens, and they just kind of resurface quietly, start looking for people that share similar interests. Cycle. Here we go again. Same cycle, same cycle, same cycle. And Tesla wanted to break that. And that, to me, is the universal conscience, the ability to break this cycle. But Tesla possessed it, he passed, and now nobody knows how to get back into it.
All right, everybody. It's time for our next commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universal. We'll be right back with our guests for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son? What are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome!
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy. I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but...
Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM and affiliates, and on the radio, on the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek. Before we get back to the show, we'd like to take a quick moment to specifically mention the radio call dials for the AM/FM terrestrial radio stations who carry Paraversal Universe, including WCET, which is located on 101.7 FM out of Columbia, South Carolina, and on High Point Radio, which can be found on 100.5 FM and 1620 AM out of New Jersey, which broadcasts in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Hello to all of you who are tuning in over the airwaves. Thank you so much. We are glad you are with us. This segment is brought to you by the Parasociology like page on Facebook. Parasociology is a study of how paranormal manifestations and experiences can affect a family, group, or collective. Parasociology also examines how spirituality is practiced in different cultures. So go check that out and leave a like for future content. Back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we are talking to Fringe researcher Robert Solomon, host of This Uncanny Earth. Still with us?
Yes, I'm still here. I'm excited to keep talking.
Yeah, and we were talking about, when you talked about the universal consciousness, now, is that, and the way you're describing it, I mean, what pops in my head is like the Akashic records. Are we talking about the same thing, or is that two separate?
No, to be honest, I'm not well versed in the Akashic records. I've read bits and pieces of that. That was some new information for me that I had happened upon when I was researching some other things, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna shelve this for now, and I'm gonna look at it later because I was in the middle of doing something else. But if I'm not, if you don't mind, would you give me like a little bit of idea of what that is?
Sure. It's where basically the history of everything is recorded and accessible. That's where Edgar Casey, for example, would talk about the Akashic records.
That's right.
And that's where he was
access
some.
That's right. That's where I actually went into
that. Sounds to me, when you say universal consciousness, I know it's used in different contexts.
Yeah, I think
so. I want to clarify.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, I think it's the same. I think just there are different terms people use for it, but if you think about it, it's the same thing.
Now that you bring that up, yeah, because in one of our episodes about paranormal people, I talked about Edgar Casey, because we were talking about Atlantis. That's right, we were talking about Atlantis, and because he knew about Atlantis, and yeah, the Akashic records were basically like a human history that could be accessed at any time. Yeah, it's basically the same thing. I think it's just another way of saying it. So yes, you're both correct. It is basically that. But I just thank you for the refresher, by the way, because I had forgotten a little bit about what that was. I'm gonna have to go back to that now when we get off the show and spend some time on that. But thank you.
You are welcome.
So why don't we cover some of the inventions on the list?
Well, yeah, we have one thing you had brought up was Tesla's amazing death ray.
Yes. Yes.
What do you know about that?
So here's something that I want to point out that I found fascinating. It's now I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but the Tunguska event in Siberia on June 30th in 1908 was supposedly caused by this death ray. Now, what this death ray was, and I've heard so many things about what this thing was, but supposedly it could, if it was built right, it could kill people from miles and miles and miles, like hundreds of miles away. It acted as an EMP device, meaning that it gave out an electromagnetic pulse that, say, a plane's flying over, it cuts out all electrical components. It kills automobiles, planes, anything like electricity or electronics. It kills that. Tanks, jeeps, missiles. So that was one aspect. Another aspect was it could disintegrate people. The radiation aspect of it, because that's basically what it is. It was a radio wave scaler, so that it could increase or decrease radio waves, and it's almost like a microwave if you really want to think about it in as basic as I can put it. But it'd be like firing a microwave at somebody.
A microwave blast.
Right. I mean, it might heat your dinner up or it might burn you up. Nobody knows. But It's said that the transmitter could generate 10 megatons or more of TNT. Now, to put that in some perspective, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs were 15 and 20 kilotons respectively. Yeah. Now, a hydrogen bomb at its apex, at its most explosive, would be 100 megatons. So, like I said, the death ray... and when you read it in the book too, it kind of it gives all these different things that it could do, but it was for defense. He specifically said this is for defense. This isn't just for, I don't want you killing people. This is for, if somebody launches a missile at us, I'm going to be able to shoot the death ray at it. It'll knock it out, and then it'll fall to Earth somewhere, and we'll go pick it up and do whatever we have to do to make sure that doesn't do any damage, except maybe to a road. But Tesla probably had a way to keep the bomb from actually landing hard enough to hurt anything. He probably had some electrical field he could take, and the bomb would just lay on a pillow. It would just fall really slow, and then it's Tesla we're talking about.
Wow. So yeah, I'm looking at this, and there's one quote. I'm assuming these are quotes by Tesla himself. Mm-hmm. It says, "My invention requires a large plant, but once it's established, it will be possible to destroy anything, men or machines, approaching within a radius of 200 miles."
And the New York Times article that was published on July 1934 said that it was enough to destroy 10,000 planes at 250 miles away.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is one of those weapons that I'm kind of, or one of the things of Tesla that I'm kind of glad didn't really see the light of day, though we don't know. Once the U.S. government came in and took everything, maybe there is a death ray out there. Maybe we just don't know.
I think that yes, I think that almost anything that we can imagine, the government probably owns or has a version of.
Right.
And there's many things that we just don't know about. For all the stuff that we know about or know about secondhand, there are things out there that we the information has just not made it this far.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, and what I thought was interesting here, and the Tunguska blast, which is something I have researched before, that they actually thought it could have been Tesla, and he had the means and the will to do it. They said that it was off the mark, like it wasn't supposed to happen there. It was supposed to happen, I believe, in the North Pole, is where the firing was supposed to happen, because Tesla wanted to kind of take the publicity and take the worldview. And what better way to do that? What better way to say, hey, you know what? I have something that can do that. The world would have been like, oh, he tried the peaceful way of saying, you know what? I can give you guys free energy. And here comes JP Morgan, not on my watch, because I believe that's how a person like that would talk, all angrily like. And so he's like, okay, boom, I can do that. Oh, okay. Well, what do you need? And now there's so many things, and I know you two have probably both studied the Tunguska blast. It's something that's, alien spacecraft, comet, dust meteor, ice explosion, nuclear bomb test. To me, that part of the death beam tale is my favorite, because it's like, oh, that adds a new element into the Tunguska theory, so to speak, because it's fascinating to me. So not to cut you off or anything, but that part, I just wanted to kind of clarify that. Sorry, folks out there.
No, I'm glad you touched on that.
Right.
For sure. And another thing I find here, again, I'm seeing if this isn't in quotation. It says Paris, May 20th, in confidence of Grindal Matthew, inventor of the diabolical ray. And his discovery is justified. It may become possible to put the whole of an enemy army out of action, destroy any force of airplanes attacking a city, or paralyze any fleet venturing within a certain distance of the coast by invisible rays. So that statement actually suggests that he wasn't the only one who was at least aware of the potential of that.
Right. And if we also look, one thing I want the listeners to know is, so in the 1940s, there was a Superman cartoon. And they tried to paint Tesla as a villain. Now, to the normal person, but if you really look into this is another way that they didn't want Tesla having any sort of sway over society. So they put him as a villain in a Superman cartoon. And he tries to blow up the world with a death ray. They do it 3 times. And the second time is robots, and the third time is kind of like a final showdown. And this is the 1940s cartoon. So what better way to sort of indoctrinate children than say, oh, look, Superman doesn't like people like him. Hey, that guy was just like that villain that fought Superman. I don't want to learn anything about that guy, because society has painted him as the bad man. So if we really look into it, we say, well, why not? Why wouldn't you want somebody like Tesla? And supposedly he looked like Tesla. I have not seen this cartoon. I do plan on watching it probably later on tonight. But to paint a person like that, it is a twofold thing. One, you're painting a man that was a fantastic human being as a villain or a spineless coward, how they probably portrayed him against Superman. And B, you're influencing children to think in a certain way and don't deviate. Do not deviate and think like that guy. And to me, that's what it said to me. Now, I don't know what, somebody else out there might be like, it's just a cartoon, it's harmless. But if you pay attention to it,
hardly.
Yeah.
Right, you're right.
Right. Now, to an adult like myself, yeah, okay, I see what you're trying to do. You can't pull the wool over my eyes. But to a child, and then all of a sudden, you're in school the next day, and the kid you think is a nerd that you pick on is a fan of Tesla, right? He's like, hey, yeah, this Serbian guy, I've been kind of like reading. Oh, you like that. You're like that. You like that guy that's kind of on that Superman commercial. You're a nerd. I'm going to beat you up. So that thought is never fostered. It's never entertained. It's stay in line, listen to what we say, and do as we say. Don't think outside the box. If you think outside the box, we're going to bully you and beat you up. And J.P. Morgan Chase and Edison bullied Tesla and beat him up, not physically, but mentally, and wore him down to a point where he gave up on humanity. I mean, if I spend my life trying to help people, and I do it every single day in terms of a widespread goal, I'm not talking about a nurse or a doctor that because that's a different type of person than Tesla, but somebody that can totally change and break that cycle, like I said before, and I keep giving you ample reasons to want to do this, and nobody cares. At some point, I'm just going to be like, okay, you keep the dumpster fire. I'm going to be here. I got my brain. As long as I have my brain and my health, I'm relatively good. But it's little things like that Superman cartoon that paint people like Tesla as a villain.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be that way. And I think one of my favorite things that people are doing now and using some of his work is the Tesla coils that they're developing.
Yes.
I know that if you look at certain paranormal groups out there, they literally have people that will build their own Tesla coils and use it for paranormal research, which I think is amazing. And then you have a car company comes out and it's Tesla cars.
Yes. And Elon Musk, for anybody that wants to look up, he does a very interesting podcast with Joe Rogan that I thoroughly enjoyed. Now, there is some language in that one, so just take that into account when you go to listen to it. But listen to Elon talk. It's fascinating because he talks about AI. He talks about, the way the world's going, the way things are, and his cars, and how we should just treat each other with love. And Elon Musk seems to me, I don't know him personally, but he seems like a good guy. He seems like he's a guy that actually cares about the future of our planet. And you're right, Jennifer, that the people are starting to build their own sort of homemade Tesla coils, and I love it. I love seeing a Tesla coil. It's they're just cool. I like seeing the electricity emanate from it. It's really awesome.
Yeah, and now people, if you could afford one financially, you can get your very own Tesla vehicle.
Mm-hmm. And those aren't cheap.
Right. And what does that run on? Energy.
Right. And Elon Musk has also, he's working on a design for solar panels that go on homes that, and this is already, solar panels aren't anything new. They've been around for a very long time. But so what it does, it stores the energy. So say if you have a cloudy day, it does it in a way that it stores enough energy that will still run your home, everything in it, and it runs your central air. It knows when you're going to come home through apps on your phone. You can program it and everything else like a remote control. And it's just that's the future I want to live in. I want to live in that technologically advanced future where we don't have to worry about mankind being heartless. But I don't think, honestly, we're ever going to escape mankind not being heartless, especially when they get mob mentality. Then it's all bad from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. let's see here. So the another one. Well, I'm going to let's see. Let's pick a good one. There's so many.
There's so, and some of them you're just like, some of the normal ones are not really normal, but like the ones that aren't in the unusual part of that book, you're looking at it, you're like, what does this thing do? Like you're trying to follow all like the patterns of it. And you're like, yeah, I have no idea what this thing does.
Okay, so we see that. Okay, so there's two things. One is that looks interesting. Okay, cool. One that looks interesting is the Atlantean power system.
Yes, that's a very that looks really cool. I have to agree with you on that one.
And let's see, it's at the top of the Atlantean pyramid was a 50-foot metal column, something like a thick flagpole, which terminated in a circular bank of what looked like the spokes of a wheel, about 10 feet long and 16 inches in diameter. These spokes protruded a number of irregular intervals, each one carefully sighted like a rifle to a near distant receiver. These spokes were actually composed of exotic mixture of metals and formed into a homogeneous crystalline aggregate under extreme pressure and magnetic hysteresis. Wow. I mean, who thinks of this stuff?
Well, and basically when I read that and you just brought it back up again, so in my mind you have the pyramid, and then you have this crystal on top, or crystals, and the energy radiates into the crystals, and then the crystals amplify it wherever it has to go. And I know a lot of people that are really into crystals, because they say they have different like properties, that some can calm you, some pull different like energies or moods or feelings. I'm not well versed in crystals, so anybody that is, I apologize if I'm kind of messing this up. That's not my forte. So if anybody wants to give me a lesson on it, I'm okay with that.
No, you totally understand that. That's fine. I am one of those people. I love crystals. I collect crystals, and I use crystals for various types of energy and energy work and healing. And crystals have some amazing power to them.
And see, if she uses them for that, imagine amplifying energy through one. I mean, it almost reminds me, and tell me if I'm wrong here, of a magnifying glass that, you take the sun and you can burn a cardboard box by amplifying the rays of the sun, and condensing it. So I think crystal energy would work the same way. I hope that's a good analogy. If not, let me know.
It is. Well, you look at quartz crystals in particular, they're conduits for that.
Yeah, I'm glad you described it like such, because that really puts in the mind's eye what we were talking about as far as the pyramid and how it would be.
Yeah. Quartz are conduits.
What's interesting, and there are scientific tests that prove that there are properties to crystals.
Okay. Why don't we continue this conversation after this next commercial break? You are listening to Paraversal Universal. We'll be right back with our guest for the last segment.
Yay.
You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Alrighty, we're back, everyone. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM, High Point Radio, and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek. We are glad you are with us. This segment is brought to you by the 5-star Reader's Choice Award-winning epic fantasy trilogy Helm by Robert L. Malek. Book 3 just came out, so look for that. And we are speaking with Robert Solomon from This Uncanny Earth. Check him out. Hello. Check him out on social media. And we are talking about the fantastic inventions of Nikola Tesla.
Yes. And we were talking about crystals before, and I wanted to interject something real quick. The Atlantean power source and the old world, I believe, I have a theory that comes in with ley lines. And people that aren't familiar with ley lines, think of the Earth as a power grid. And these ancient civilizations were able to tap into this power grid using whatever form of energy or however they brought it forth. I think crystals were definitely one way that they did that, because Atlantis, they talk about crystals. They talk about Atlantean crystals, and that's a real big thing. In Egypt, I think it was the gold capstone, because if anybody's ever studied even a little bit of electricity, you don't have to be a genius when it comes to electricity. Lord knows I am not. But gold is a fantastic conductor of electricity, and it's said that the Anunnaki, when they had human slaves that worked to mine gold for them. I think that's right. I hope that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Sorry to interrupt you, Kevin. I didn't mean to.
No.
But I believe that the ley lines themselves are all on the same grid, and that's something else I think Tesla understood. I think that is how he was able to pull wireless electricity, because he understood that the Earth is a basic power grid, that you can pull power out of different sources. That's why we see places like the Bermuda Triangle. When you fly over it, your instruments get all wonky and things don't make any sense, because it's a form of a ley line. It's a power grid. The same goes for places of high spiritual activity. The Vatican, for instance, is sitting on a ley line. The pyramids sat on ley lines. The Stonehenge sits on a ley line. Any places you have these fixtures, or these religious fixtures, or you have, like the black cube in Mecca. I'm drawing a blank on what that's called, but they make pilgrimages to it each year. The Muslims do. The Kaaba. So they make these pilgrimages to this place, and they're overtaken with spiritual excitement. Same goes for when you go to the Vatican. Same goes for when you go to your bigger churches. And you have to think, if these people, like the Pope or some of these other folks, are using this energy to indoctrinate or to pull people in, because changes in different dynamics, weather, electricity, things like that, can alter a person's mind or alter a person's mood and make them feel a different way. And maybe they also amplify power through these buildings, so that when they speak, people are drawn to that. We see Hitler at many of his larger rallies, larger places, being able to draw people in. And of course, that plays into part of being able to speak very eloquently and being able to rile people up to a cause. But I have to wonder if some of these places on our Earth's energy grid are used for that. And they were used for energy, but they're also used for, controlling folks. And I don't mean controlling like mind control, but, maybe if you're at this place of power, you feel different. It's like Tesla. He could sit underneath his, and I love this. If anybody's ever seen The Prestige, David Bowie actually plays Nikola Tesla. And he's sitting under one of his Tesla coils. and the electricity's cracking and it's sparking through the air, and he literally walks through the electricity, and it's kind of coming off of him, and I could see Tesla doing that because I think he understood the power and how to pull it from the earth. And I think a lot of these other places that we see, Pomuponku, and I probably botched that name again.
I think you got it right that time.
Stonehenge.
I hope so.
Stonehenge is another good example.
Right.
Well, there's so many ancient ancient sacred sites that are built on these ley lines. In fact, anytime we do an investigation, we check to see if the site is on any kind of. We check for things like ley lines, because even notoriously haunted places, some of which also lie on ley lines. One in particular, the Ram Inn in Britain, for example, I believe.
Scotland? Is the Ram Inn in Scotland?
The Ram Inn is in the UK, or in England.
Yeah, it's in England.
I only know that place from Ghost Adventures, unfortunately.
The Ram Inn, yes, very haunted place.
Bobby Mackey's Music World is another place that is probably sitting on a form of a ley line.
Yeah.
And you're both right. It is actually I'm probably going to butcher this. Gloucestershire, England is where the Ram Inn is. Yeah. My apologies. I thought it was in Scotland, and I was wrong. So.
Well, no, you look at places like Bobby Mackey's and stuff, like they have stuff like railroad tracks there. You have water dams there. You have power plants there. You have all this energy being given off by all these conduits, and it creates a lot of activity.
And I believe that's any place that has that kind of stuff. Obviously. The paranormal investigators, probably folks like yourself, say that energy can be drawn on by spirits. I am not really well versed in the paranormal world in terms of ghost research. I know I've never actually went out and used DVPs and stuff. I've been to haunted locations and done ghost hunts at night, and it's fun. I'm not well versed in it, but I think it's really cool. So I know you two are definitely much more versed in it than I am, but I believe that energy can be fed off by these spirits or by these entities, and that's why you have those places like Bobby Mackey's or like the Ram Inn that are really, really, really haunted because of that energy that is sitting there that these entities can draw on.
Right.
Right.
So another thing I want to touch on before we're done. Is Tesla and the pyramids of Mars.
Yes.
And you had brought up Marconi before, Marconi, and that plays into this too, isn't it? I mean,
yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, all right. The thing about the Marconi and Tesla, they were friends. They kind of competed a little bit, and Marconi is known for the radio, and that's where I thought it ended with Marconi. I didn't know a lot of this. Like I said, this is some newer stuff that I learned about Marconi. But so he actually disappears, and he also creates his own death ray for anybody that. And he actually showed it off to Mussolini. And Mussolini had his wife in a car driving in Milan one afternoon, and at 3:30, Marconi's device causes the electrical systems to fail, and all the motorists there and all that, their cars failed. Now the cars ended up starting again, so it wasn't on the same level as Tesla, but that's just one of the cool things about Marconi that I didn't know. I just know him from the radio, so to kind of read this and kind of like, oh, okay, because. Wow, he's really up on that. Now, Marconi, multiple scientists were said to just they kind of disappeared. Falconelli was one of them. They all kind of warn people about atomic energy and things like that, but then they just disappear. And so he is believed to have joined, and Tesla was actually believed he supposedly he didn't die, that a UFO picked him up and took him to this secret area in South America. Now, supposedly this place is located in Venezuela, and I find the riots and things like that, and all of a sudden our sudden interest in Venezuela, everybody says it's oil, but if the powers that be really wanted to get rid of oil, they could still have the clean energy on lockdown. They could still make millions off of it on lockdown. It wouldn't even be that hard. They could transition to it. People would have to buy it, and they would just continue on doing what they do. But it's just funny that this Venezuela thing is really big now. But supposedly there's an ancient city built in a volcano that Marconi and his team, and it's a super city. And it's actually called the Ciudad Subterranean de los Andes. And that was penned by Robert Charot. It goes from supposedly it went from Caracas to Santiago. Excuse me. And Marconi goes there with all these other scientists and Tesla, and they start building UFOs. They start building these different anti-gravity machines, and so they go off to Mars. And supposedly they have built secret cities on Mars and on the moon. And Tesla aided them in that he built, part of the city was he built a collector of cosmic energy, the basic essential of all matter, and they use it. They use it in the city, and then in the city they prosper, they flourish. So supposedly this is all done in Venezuela, and actually it stretches. And the mountains are, miles upon miles upon miles, and they've never been explored, by people, by a group of people. But it's crazy because they talk about flights to the moon, to the Mars. They make flying saucers. They do a lot of anti-gravity techniques, a lot of anti-gravity research. And this also kind of relates to Nazi Germany. A lot of Germans escaped the hunting parties of Europe that came in to kind of rile them up or corral them up and then have them executed or tried or what have you for war crimes. They leave, and suppose they have a secret base called New Schwabenland in Antarctica, and there's a couple super cities there. And you start reading all this, and you start taking all this in. Well, what if Tesla did disappear? What if he did go to this place? And what if they are all sitting right now on Mars, listening to this show right now, like, oh man, those guys are some good. Those guys and that lady are some good folks. I like those people. And it's just fascinating because if we really sit down and look at Tesla, like the next logical step for Nikola Tesla is the flying saucer. Why not? I mean, he already knew electricity. Why not take it to the next step? And he actually but he actually has a patent for a VTOL. And VTOLs were like, that's stuff now. And Tesla had a patent for a VTOL. And that was in 1928. And it would also be Tesla's last patent. But the whole fascination with Mars and supposedly Tesla could teleport to these places, and with Marconi. So you have two of the greatest minds working together, and all of a sudden now they're teleporting to Mars. And it's funny. We see pyramids on Mars, and we also see pyramids here.
Right.
We gotta wrap this up.
Oh,
I know.
Boo.
Robert, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate it. And we will have to have you back on in the future to continue this discussion.
This was an utter blessing. God bless both of you. I had an amazing time. This is one of my favorite, just kind of talking and just getting to know, talking about Tesla. And this is my first time on terrestrial radio, so this is cool. This is a milestone for me, and I appreciate both of you making that happen. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're absolutely. We'd like to thank Robert Solomon from This Uncanny Earth for being such an awesome guest. Go check them out on social media. That's This Uncanny Earth. Next Friday, we will have a Paralogian report on tap. So don't miss that. Feel free to support any of the networks mentioned here tonight, as well as the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited, 501c3 nonprofit organization, by donating. It's folks like you who ensure these excellent organizations will be here tomorrow. To the believer, the evidence is overwhelming.
And to the skeptic, there will never be enough.
Thank you. God bless you. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you here next time.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.